Hello and welcome to this week's edition of First Chapter Fridays. It's Miss Valine here, your CCMS media specialist, with a brand new book to our library. Just in is Count Me In by Varsha Bajaj. It is a story about, unfortunately, hate crimes. From the back. Getting old is not fun. From the back. Karina knows hate crimes happen everywhere, but she never imagined she'd face one herself. Karina isn't friends with Chris, the kid next door. Why would she want to be when the guy he hangs out with acts like a pack of rude laughing hyenas? But when her grandfather starts tutoring him and the three of them begin spending time together, she's happy to discover that Chris is not at all like she expected him to be. Then something unthinkable happens. A stranger assaults them, targeting and badly injuring her Indian American grandfather. Karina and Chris are devastated, but vow not to let hate win. And when Karina's moving social media posts about the attack go viral and the press descends, she and Chris have to decide how they will use their newfound fame. It's intimidating to speak out, but how can they not? Count me in. Chapter 1, First Chapter Fridays. Chapter 1, Karina. Chris Daniels and I are like separate planets orbiting the same galaxy. Like the planets, we have our own paths, and I like it that way. Mine is full of photos and stories, and his is full of basketball and hyenas. Like Venus and Earth, we are next door neighbors. We've been in the same school since I moved to the neighborhood in 3rd grade, but we've been in the same class only once in 5th grade. Then all of the crappy karma, there he is on the first day of 7th grade in 5 out of my 7 classes in spring middle school. How did this happen and why? I must have had some good karma too, because Miss Trotter is my homeroom and social studies teacher. She is the best. She greets me with a fist bump for real. Miss Trotter is flawed, though. She believes in assigned seating. Seeing Chris sitting at the desk on my left in homeroom makes it impossible to focus. I know how that is. Our paths are getting dangerously close. It makes me remember stuff from our year ago that I'd buried away, like those jeans with patchwork flowers in the depths of my closet. Being neighbors, Chris and I have waited at the same bus stop every morning for years. He always carries some type of ball, basketball, football, or baseball. The boys play an impromptu game as if they can't waste even those few minutes before the bus rambles in. I typically have my nose in a book because I have a genetic flaw that does not allow me to catch, throw, or whack around an object. Also, I don't want to be laughed at. When a girl named Emily played with the boys and flubbed a catch, they laughed all the way to school and back for days. It felt like survival of the most athletic on our suburban Houston streets. And Chris was a witness to one of the worst moments in my middle school life. It was in 6th grade, earlier in the school year. It was still 98 degrees because apparently the weather gods had not flipped the calendar for summer to fall yet. Every ride home on the bus was a sauna, and it brought out the worst in the boys, who for some reason had turned into a pack of cackling hyenas that year. While the rest of us fanned ourselves with notebooks or sighed in submission to the heat, they started making lists, and they were not harmless to-do lists. The prettiest girls, the bossiest girls, the girls with the best hair. My best friend Ashley made that list. The girls with the worst hair, your basic degrading grading system for girl human beings. Then Quinn, or hyena number 1, said, let's make a list of the girls with the hairiest arms. Because why not, right? Instinctively, I pulled at my short sleeves. I didn't have a sweater to cover up because 98 degrees. Together the hyenas said, K-chops, yuck, yuck, yuckity, yuck. Yes, I, Karina Chopra, was at the top of that list, the only one on the list. The boys thought it was hilarious that they couldn't stop laughing long enough to name anyone else. I glanced around through lowered lids. Some of the kids nearby pretended they had not heard, but I knew they heard because they weren't wearing earplugs and none of them had a hearing problem. Others were laughing. For the briefest moment in time, like a nanosecond, I caught Chris Daniels' eye. He wiped off his grin the moment our eyes met, then looked away because he had been seen. Back then, I envied girls who had older brothers or sisters to protect them from the bullies. Before the hairy arm incident, I imagined that my neighbor Chris, who had grown taller and bigger, would one day be my friend and stand up for me. His older brother, Matt, was always friendly to me, but he had gone off to college a few years back. After I saw Chris being a jerk with his friends, I realized he was not superhuman, and I didn't need rescuing anyway. The rest of the way home, I was mad at myself for caring. Ashley, who usually sat with me on the bus, was homesick that day. If she had been there, she would have glared at the hyenas and said, "Karina, they're fools." But in a way, I was just as glad she missed it all. Who needs a witness to humiliation? From that day forward, I wore a lot of long-sleeved shirts to cover up my arms, even in the heat of Houston, Texas. At first, Mom didn't notice. She and Dad were busy building their sandwich franchise. Mom had quit her 9-to-5 job at an oil company a year before. Dad still had his day job as a computer system analyst, which meant he was working 25 out of 24 hours. Finally, one day, Mom looked at me and said, "Karina, what happened to all the cute shirts that we bought for back to school?" She had caught me off guard, so I blurted out the truth. "They all have short sleeves, and I need to cover my ugly arms." Mom and Dad exchanged one of their looks. "Oh, Karina," my mom said, "boys will be awful. Don't let them get to you. Your arms are not ugly." But a mother has to say that, right? Around that time, I was passed a note. It had my name on it in big, bold letters, Karina. I turned out to see who had written to me, but everybody had their heads down. I opened the note. The same old bold letters spelled, "Curry chops stink. Go home." When I looked back again, hyena number 1, otherwise named Quinn, was giggling. I read the note again. This time I took a deep breath to calm myself. I didn't live under a rock. I knew that since 9/11, when the Twin Towers tumbled and terror came to our shores, people have looked at brown skin with suspicion. I wasn't even born then, but the stories were whispered in South Asian immigrant homes for years after. Usually the adults tried to shield us kids. Even so, the fears seeped through closed doors and ventilation ducts. "Be careful," they said. Be careful. When I was 7 or 8, my older cousin told me about the Sikh American man who got shot in Arizona after 9/11 attacks, probably because he was wearing a turban. And that alone made the murderer think foreign, terrorists. My cousin had been telling us ghost stories. Somehow, she ended up telling us a real story that was even scarier. I was thankful that my father and grandfather did not wear turbans, and I worried for my friends whose fathers and grandfathers did. My parents calmed my fears. They believed in America and said we were still safe. I trusted them because I wanted to. It could never happen to me, I told myself, and why would it happen to me? I was like my friends and peers. I reread the note. "Curry chops stink. Go home." Was I different from my friends and peers? I knew I didn't stink. The note was Quinn's way of saying he thought I was un-American, even though I was born in Texas and so were my parents. I remember crumpling the note very deliberately and tossing it into the trash where the teacher wasn't looking. And for once, despite my shaky hands, it fell into the basket in a determined arc, because that was where it belonged and the universe knew that. I noticed Chris Daniels watching me make that throw. When I told my dad about the note, he let out a sneer He let out a swear word, and they could see how upset he was. Ignore the haters, Karina, he told me. Keep your head down and work. My father always said that the best revenge is success. And remember, this is your country as much as it is Quinn's. Miss Trotter asks me a question and brings me back to the class. She looks confused when I have no answer. She does not realize that I have not heard a word she said. Chris and I don't speak to each other the rest of that first day of 7th grade, nor do we on the bus ride home. Today, I'd let myself be distracted by Chris Daniels, but tomorrow will be different. I am determined to have a good year and to do well, especially in math. 2 things are definitely going to help me with that. My grandfather is moving in with us, and he is a math whiz. I will have my own personal tutor at home. Papa coming to live with us is also great because it means I won't have to go to the sandwich store after school. I'll get a break from slicing cucumbers and tomatoes, and I'll have more time for my photography. In the evening, I borrow Dad's Canon and stroll around the neighborhood taking pictures. I need to submit my best photograph for an art gallery competition later this fall, and I'm still shooting. I can already see my photograph hanging on the gallery's perfect walls, bathed by a spotlight. I can hear the applause. I can smell the wine and cheese. Will they have sparkling cider for the underage exhibitors? Yes. It is going to be a very good year. Count Me In by Varsha Bajaj. Very timely book, especially with everything that has been going on in our country here lately and the great division that is happening. And, unfortunately, many of you may even have heard about the White Lives Matter banner that was placed here in our city, which was just disgraceful and sad. So a great story to kind of match what's going on in the world today, and to see a young person very much like yourself stand up for what they know is right, what they believe in, and fight for their honor and their dignity, and against all those haters out there. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to check it out, remember you can go to CCMS Media Center. You can put in your information, log in on Destiny Quest, look up Count Me In, and check it out. And I will place it on hold for you, and you can come pick it up at school. Have a great weekend. See you later.